Hello, everybody. Good morning, and welcome back to the latest edition of the Morning Bulletin. Here on the Blood Red channel, I'm your host, Edward Kay. Joining me this morning is Jamie Findlater, and we're going to start today by discussing this reported world record bid for Mohamed Salah that could be incoming over the next day or so. Obviously, the Saudi transfer window does close tomorrow at midnight, I believe, the 7th of September. Rumours that there's going to be a bid of an initial £200 million and add-ons that would take it to a world record fee of £215 million. But I mean, Jamie, do you think with our window being closed, do you think this one's still just a non-starter for Liverpool?
I think it's always been a bit of a non-starter for Liverpool, just on the basis that they've basically got no one to replace Salah in that side at the moment. I mean, there are players who could play that position, I think, and I think there are players that could do a decent job of it as well. But I think at this moment in time, you're just not going to get anyone in the current squad that offers the same that you'd get with Salah on that right-hand side. So I think the money is, well, it's getting a bit ridiculous now, and it is getting to the point where you'd think, maybe. But at this moment in time, I don't think, it's a non-starter. And you've just got to bear in mind that if they're disinterested now and the money's getting this ridiculous now, chances are in January or in 12 months' time, it's going to be the same. So Liverpool just needs to kind of stay strong over these next 24 hours or so.
Yeah, I think you're spot on about the money still being there in, as you say, January or next summer, which I think much more likely. But I mean, even if the transfer window was still open in England and Liverpool were able to go out and get a replacement, if this had all been going on in June, I mean, I've said this on a few podcasts now. I've said it to all my mates who've discussed this sort of transfer with me. Is there anybody out there on your radar that Liverpool could even go and get that could replace Mohamed Salah? I mean, the list of players in his position that are as good or better than him, it's not a very long list, is it, Jamie?
It's not, and that's the whole point of why Liverpool are so adamant that they don't want to let go of Salah, because he does offer something that very few players can. I mean, his numbers off the right are ridiculous, and you think about, the only kind of two players that could compete with him last season in terms of goals were Harry Kane and Erling Haaland, and they're both playing in the centre. So in terms of goals, you're not going to find, or chances are you're not going to find anyone in that kind of same ilk of Salah. And I mean, it's not just the goals, it's the assists as well. And the fact that he's so rarely injured as well. I mean, he played near enough every game last season, I think. So there is just, I mean, it's something that Liverpool are going to have to consider, because chances are, I mean, you'd imagine this interest is not going to go away. The chances of him signing a new contract maybe next summer, you'd imagine, are probably a bit limited, but it's something they're going to have to consider, because they're going to have eyes on people at the moment, because it is going to have to be a road that they cross at some stage.
Yeah, as you said, I do think they do need to start casting an eye on who they might have pegged for that Salah replacement on that right-hand side. Obviously, Ben Doak got a few appearances in pre-season. He's appeared in the Premier League before. I mean, I'm not sure anybody wants him to be stepping in Salah's shoes quite yet. But I mean, it is a world record bid that's being reported. So do you think that this means Liverpool have to at least consider it a little bit more than some of the previous bids they've had? Or do you think it's still it's not even a question for the Reds?
I think, given the money that's being spoken about, I mean, we're talking, £215 million or something like that. There does come a point where you have to think, yeah, probably we will have to consider that, because it's a lot of money to turn down, and it could make a big difference, especially if you're going to look for a replacement for Salah. You can essentially start looking at anyone and everyone, basically, because that sort of money will make a huge difference. But at the same time, I mean, they're going to have other priorities to look at. I mean, we're still sat here, we still need a defender, and we still probably need maybe at least a backup to Trent, or maybe, talking about this system and needing a left-sided centre back to possibly replace Robertson. But assuming that this system's going to stay in place in 12 months' time, and things might change. So we might be sat here thinking, well, we need a new left back completely, or something like that. So there are still other priorities that need taken care of, and I think if we, at some stage, I mean, as I say, that money's probably still going to be there in 12 months' time from Saudi Arabia. They're going to come back for Salah. They've made it clear that he is kind of the big signing they want over there. So I think that money's going to be there regardless. It might not be 215 million next summer, but it's still going to be big, big money. So if Liverpool are in a position where they can actually target someone to replace him and get a decent replacement in for him, then it's something that, for the time being, don't consider it. But maybe in 12 months' time, it's something that they do need to kind of think about.
Yeah, it was a somewhat muted celebration after his goal against Villa, really, from Salah, wasn't it? But it was the loudest roar of the day from Anfield by quite some way. Do you think all this is weighing on Salah's mind at all? Because obviously, a lot earlier in the window, we had his agent Rami Abbas came out and sort of dismissed all the rumours. But obviously, we've not really heard anything from Salah's camp in quite a long time. Do you think that this move is something that he is considering? Maybe not right now, but definitely something for next summer and beyond.
I think it is probably in his mind, but I don't think it's weighing on it, especially. Sunday sort of proved that in terms of his performance. He got his goal and looked quite bright. I don't think it's something that's particularly worrying him or anything like that. I think for him, anyway, he knows that if he stays at Liverpool, he's going to be playing most games anyway. He's going to get goals. He's going to get assists. He's going to be one of Liverpool's, main men. So from his point of view, I don't think there's anything that kind of should be playing on his mind or anything like that. And he knows deep down that, how to say, in 12 months' time, that interest will still be there if he does decide he wants to move on. And I think in 12 months' time, Liverpool will be in a better position to kind of meet any demands that he makes. So if he says, he wants a new contract, or he wants to, build on his wages again, then Liverpool can decide what's best for the club at that point, and hopefully at that point we'll come to a decision that works for everyone, really.
Yeah, well, it remains to be seen if this world record bid does land in the next day or so. We'll obviously bring you any news of that and Liverpool's, I would assume, swift no from the club. But we'll move on now. We'll discuss Jordan Henderson's finally spoken out since his move to Al-Ittihad, joining Steven Gerrard out there, obviously. So the two former Liverpool skippers, one of them managing, one of them skippering that side. I mean, the interview, I can't imagine his PR team have had a great time since the interview came out. I mean, mixed reaction is probably the most positive thing you could say about it. I mean, a lot of corners of Liverpool Twitter not really happy with him. Do you think he would have just been better off staying quiet, Jamie?
Yes, simple as. I mean, it's an unbelievably naive and quite, I hate to say it, stupid interview, really, from him. It's the answers he's given are terrible, and some of the stuff he talks about. I mean, we all know why he's left Liverpool, and I mean, this kind of idea that he left because he didn't feel wanted or whatever it is. He suggesting that if Jurgen Klopp had said he still wanted him, then he'd have stayed, but he still had 2 years left on his contract, for goodness sake. And is there any kind of bigger sign that a player is wanted than, being offered a new contract when he's in his 30s, a couple of years ago? And it's such a departure from what he kind of said when, Brendan Rodgers wanted to get rid of him back in, a good few years ago, when Brendan Rodgers decided that he wasn't good enough for Liverpool, basically, and wanted to offload him to Fulham. And Henderson comes out of all this kind of blustering, saying, I wanted to prove myself. I wanted to show that I deserve to be in the team. And then just a few years later, Jurgen Klopp, I mean, the reaction is nowhere near as severe as it was with Rodgers. saying, a bid came in, Klopp didn't really react to it or anything like that. There was no kind of indication that Klopp wanted to get rid of Henderson or anything like that. And yet Henderson's taken it upon himself to say, well, I didn't feel wanted, and if anybody had said they wanted me, I would have stayed. Well, clearly, I think you could have stayed. The option was there, and I think that chances are Henderson would have played this season. I mean, we've had this problem with, a defensive midfielder. Obviously, Wataru, Endo's come in now, but Henderson would have played. Like, simple as that. McAllister's done a decent job, but at the end of the day, Henderson is probably better suited to that role. And Henderson probably would have played against Chelsea at the very least, probably would have played against Bournemouth the next game. Whether he would have carried on against, Newcastle and Villa is up for debate, but he certainly would have played, and he would have been getting games regardless. So, and that's, before we go on to the other stuff he's talked about and his reasoning for going, it leaves a very bitter taste, let's just say that.
I think you're spot on. Quite frankly, I'm just not having it that nobody said they wanted him to stay. I just don't believe that's true. And I mean, if that is true, all he had to do was log into Twitter, go on his timeline, and he'd see thousands of Liverpool fans saying they want him to stay. He would have seen the LGBTQ plus Liverpool supporters group begging him to stay, which I think should have been pretty much all he needed. Obviously, we know that a big part of the reason he's been getting criticised for going over has been such a vocal ally of the Rainbow Laces campaign. Obviously, he spoke about that a little bit in his interview, sort of used it as a bit of a badge of honour, saying that he'd worn the Rainbow Laces, and it's all a bit like, yeah, but you've thrown it away now, haven't you? I mean, overall, do you think the whole move, the interview as well, how badly damaged do you think his Liverpool legacy has been by this entire fiasco? Because I think at this point, I don't think you can deny that it has definitely tainted his legacy.
Definitely. And it's one of them. Obviously it doesn't take away the trophies that he won or anything like that, but just the way he's left, the way he's gone about things with this interview, almost pinning the blame on anyone and everyone apart from himself. I think everyone kind of has in their mind what the reasoning was for him to go to Saudi Arabia. He's denying that, seemingly, from my point of view anyway. It looks like he's just trying to almost convince himself that that's the reason why he's gone there, and trying to convince anyone who will listen to him that that's the reason why he's gone there. But I think everyone kind of knows better, and it has, as I say, it's left a very kind of sour taste. And just calling into question, trying to call into question Jurgen Klopp and the suggestion that he played some kind of role in him leaving and that he didn't feel wanted or anything like that. I think Jurgen Klopp's made it clear that Henderson was wanted and he would have had opportunities, and I think that's just not the right way to go about things. I mean, Jurgen Klopp, I think any Liverpool fan will tell you, Jurgen Klopp is the best thing to have happened to this club for a good while. So to kind of try and turn it on him as a reason why he left is just not going to work, and it's not going to wash. And it does, to me, I was a big fan of John Henderson when he was at the club, and part of that was his off the field work as well. And this is it's completely changed my view of him now, and it has sort of maybe not completely ruined everything that he did, but it has certainly tainted it.
Yeah, I think you were spot on earlier. I think the best word you can use to describe, the kindest word you can use to describe that interview, I think, is naive, isn't it? I mean, you could be a lot more mean if you wanted to, but we won't go into that on this this morning stream, because that is all we've got time for here on the Morning Bulletin. As I said, we will of course bring you any more Mohamed Salah news as and when we have it. But for now, Jamie, thanks for joining me, and we'll catch you next time.